On today's episode of The Franchise, today is Tuesday, January 17th. In this episode, we're going to recap the final game of the NFL wildcard round between the Cowboys and Buccaneers. What a dominating win for the Dallas Cowboys, and what could be Tom Brady's final game as a quarterback in the National Football League. We'll recap that game, talk about Tom Brady's future, and then take a look into the NFL Divisional Round this weekend. We'll also have a quick conversation. C.J. Stroud finally declared for the NFL Draft after conversations of him staying for his senior year at Ohio State. Then we'll end it off with our top 10 second basemen heading into the 2023 season. We've done catchers and the first baseman as we continue to work around the diamond to the start of opening day in the MLB. Before we get into the episode, as always, the franchise is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Go check it out on all of those platforms if you want to watch along or you want to listen. And then the Instagram and TikTok are also in the description of every single episode. You can find it there. Make sure you are following, liking those platforms as well. Cowboys and Buccaneers on Monday night was the final wildcard game. The final game of the wildcard round. Cowboys, Buccaneers. Cowboys 12-5 record on the year. Tampa 8-9. Tampa gets the host playoff game though. They won their division. And I said yesterday, and I said in the predictions video last week, I said that I thought Tampa Bay was going to win this game. And that was because, for a few factors. One, Tom Brady's never lost to the Dallas Cowboys. That in itself should be enough of a reason to pick the Cowboys, just based on the fact that's being brought up. But, I thought Tom Brady in the playoffs. I know the Buccaneers were not a good regular season team. 8-9, they had a lot of struggles. They lost to a good amount of bad teams. But I thought coming into these playoffs at home with Tom Brady, they would be able to beat the Cowboys. And I thought that also because of the recent performance of the Cowboys. Dak Prescott in his last game against the Commanders had a very poor game. A lot of turnovers and interceptions. And they just haven't been playing as strong as they were earlier in the season. But the Dallas Cowboys came out last night and they proved a lot of people wrong. They came out balling. Dak Prescott had the best game of his entire career. 305 yards, 4 touchdowns passing, and also a rushing touchdown for 5 touchdowns total on the game. And Dak Prescott, and I said this yesterday too, I said if the Cowboys want to win, Dak Prescott needs to play perfect football. And that is what he did in this game. He didn't turn the ball over. He made the perfect throw to a lot of wide open receivers and his tight ends, and he fed Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott the football. And that offensive line played some of the best, had some of their best performance of the entire season. That group right there hasn't, they've had their moments this year, but last night they were perfect. And if they can play like that, if the Cowboys offensive line can protect like they did last night for these entire playoffs, the Cowboys could go as far as to win the Super Bowl. And the same thing goes for Dak Prescott. I mean, if he continues to play like this, or at least a step down, I think they are just fine when it comes to the teams that they could potentially face in the next few rounds. Tony Pollard, Ezekiel Elliott, great backfield duo. And then, Dalton Schultz, he had a huge game, 95 yards and 2 touchdowns for Dallas last night. CeeDee Lamb, 68 yards on 4 catches for a touchdown. Gallup with a touchdown on 46 yards. So the Cowboys last night offensively were really able to do a lot of things, and it all started with Dak Prescott having a career game. For Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, I don't know why I didn't see through the fact that they have been a bad football team this year. Offensively, they've been horrible. For a majority of this game, Tampa hadn't scored any points. I mean, we can go through their offensive drives here. These are their offensive drives throughout the entire game. Punt, interception, punt, touchdown, turnover on downs, touchdown, turnover on downs. They punted the ball 5 times in this game. threw an interception, and then turned the ball over twice on downs, only scoring twice. They only scored in the second half. This offense was horrible. With all of the weapons that they have, Chris Godwin, Mike Evans, Julio Jones, Russell Gage, Leonard Fournette, you would think Tom Brady at quarterback. You think that this team, this offense, would be a lot more productive and a lot more explosive than it really was. And it's been all year. Whose fault is that? I mean, the offensive line has not been good. They don't have a running game. Dak Prescott had 25 rushing yards in this game. He basically had more rushing yards than Rachaad White and Leonard Fournette. So the first thing is that the Buccaneers don't have a running game. Tom Brady, I mean, you can't put a whole lot of blame on him. I mean, in this game, 351 yards, 2 touchdowns. He did throw that one interception, 35 of 66 passing. I think the problem is he's throwing the ball 66 times at 46 years old. You need a running game, especially in these playoffs. So I think that's the problem with Tampa. They just haven't had the running game all year, and that finally got to them tonight. Another story from this game, Brett Maher, 1 of 5 on extra point kicks in this game. He missed 4 straight extra points in the game for the Cowboys. Finally made one on his 5th attempt. If they lost, he would have been cut today. But lucky for him that they won this game. What's next for Tom Brady? 46 years old, free agent this offseason. Remember, last year he did retire for about 30 days and then decided to come back to the NFL. If he does retire, he has a few options, right? Retire, and then he has that deal lined up with Fox to be a broadcaster, 10 years. I think it's $350 million. Or he can continue playing. And with that, I think he really only has one option if he continues to play in the NFL, and that's to leave the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I don't see him returning. 2 years of 2 straight playoff exits. And especially this past season, 8-9 record, no running game. You just didn't have a great season. I think there's better options elsewhere for Tom Brady to go. And I mentioned this a few episodes ago. I said the Las Vegas Raiders are probably the best option right now with Devontae Adams, Hunter Renfrow, Darren Waller, his former offensive coordinator with the Patriots at head coach, and Josh McDaniels. The possibility of Josh Jacobs re-signing with the team. A high draft pick that you could either use on the offense or defensive side of the ball. So the Raiders are a very attractive destination. The Jets, I know it's in the division with his former team, the Patriots, but they have one of the best defenses in the league, and they have potential on offense to be a really good team. Tennessee Titans, you could look at... What happened to my list of quarterback needy teams? You look at the Indianapolis Colts. You could look at the Minnesota Vikings if they want to move on from Kirk Cousins. There's a lot of teams, especially a lot that I'm blanking. The Giants aren't going to replace Daniel Jones. There's a lot of teams though. The New Orleans Saints. There's a good amount of teams in the league right now, and there'll be more once we get to the offseason that are attractive destinations for Tom Brady. I still think the Raiders are at the top of the list if he does decide he wants to play another season. And if he does retire, and it is crazy to think about. That could have been the last time we ever see Tom Brady play in the NFL. I don't think it's going to happen. I think he stays at least one more season. I think he probably ends up with the Raiders, but I already, mentioned that a few episodes ago. So taking a look to the divisional round of the playoffs. Next week, they start on Saturday. Jaguars, Chiefs, Bengals, Bills in the AFC. Cowboys at the 49ers, and Giants at Eagles. We'll go through these matchups probably Thursday or Friday. I'm not going to give out my picks yet for who's going to win these games. I still have to go through and think about it. But that is a look ahead to next week's games, the divisional round of the playoffs. C.J. Stroud finally declared for the NFL draft on Monday. It took him a while to declare. There was some, conversation that he might return to Ohio State for his senior season, and that he might get the largest NIL deal, which will pay him millions and millions and millions of dollars to return to Ohio State and try and win a Heisman and try and win a national championship. But ultimately, he decides to go to the NFL draft. I think that whole thing was just bogus. Why would he return to Ohio State? He has the potential to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. He very well could go number 1 in this draft. I think he could go as low as 5. So he's a top 5 pick in the draft. He's going to be guaranteed, with one of those top 5 picks, tens of millions, 20s of millions of dollars. Compared to if he returns to Ohio State for 1 season, let's say he returns to Ohio State for 1 season, gets paid a few $1 million to do so, and then he gets hurt or he has a bad year. Then he just went from a number 1 to 5 overall pick, getting tens of millions of dollars guaranteed, to being what? If he has a bad year, gets injured, or both, to being a late first, early second round draft pick. It didn't make sense for him to return to Ohio State. He's at the peak of his draft stock right now. It can't get much higher than it currently is. And Ohio State next season, their offensive line is going to be retooled. So there's a lot of factors that just didn't make sense for him to return to the Ohio State Buckeyes for his senior season. Finally, top 10, second baseman heading into the 2023 season. We did the catchers and we did the first baseman. We're here at second base. Before we get to it, we're getting into the positions where, and I could have done it last episode too with the first baseman, but we're getting to the point now where there's a lot of guys last year that played this position, and then this upcoming season are probably moving to other spots on the field. And we're basing these lists off of last season and somewhat of the year before. We're not projecting 2023. We're using last year and 2022 and 2021 to kind of come with a collective. I mean, we're not taking a whole lot of 2021. It's like 90% 2022, 10% 2021 to come up with a top 10, to come up with the rankings here. So some of these guys, especially in the second base list, 2 of these guys are probably going to be playing different positions. I'll talk about them when I get to them. But yeah, we are getting to the point now on these rankings where, especially when we get to shortstops and we get to Fernando Tatis Jr., I don't know where to put him. Because last time we saw him play baseball, he was a shortstop. But this year, he's probably playing the outfield. So I don't know yet if I'm going to rank him as an outfielder or as a shortstop. Because if he's a shortstop, he's probably at the top of the list. But if he's an outfielder, he's probably depending, what position does he play? There's a lot of things that are unsure about some of these guys. But second baseman is where we are today. Top 10 second baseman heading into the 2023 season. Beginning with number 10, I have Gavin Lux of the Los Angeles Dodgers. I think last season was a very solid year for Gavin Lux. Taking a look at his stats, 276 average, 346 on-base percentage with a 399 slugging, 745 OPS. And then you also take a look here, 113 WRC plus on the season for him. Defensively, 81 outs above average. Not the strongest arm in the game. But, last year for Gavin Lux was a very nice season. I had him on my fantasy baseball team. I thought he was a very, productive player. He was able to punch the ball around to all fields and get on base. And that is something that I think is very valuable. And defensively, he's a very solid player at that second base position as well. He's very fast as well, walks a decent amount, doesn't strike out particularly a lot, but he doesn't strike out. He strikes out at a pretty average pace, I'd say. And he doesn't hit the ball too hard, which is, makes him kind of the perfect second baseman. Contact, all fields, defensive-minded second baseman. Coming into this next season, I'd expect a lot from Gavin Lux in a Dodgers lineup that's lost a lot of pieces. He'll be playing that second base spot. There's a potential for him to play shortstop, but that shortstop spot got filled up. So Gavin Lux coming in the next season, I have him at number 10 on this list. Number 9, I have Trevor Story from the Red Sox. This is one of the guys that will probably be playing a different position next year. With the loss of Xander Bogaerts, it's more than likely that he does play shortstop in 2023, but also I'm pretty sure he probably won't even play in 2023. He just got Tommy John surgery not too long ago. So he probably won't even play this year, but if he were to play, he's probably going to be at the shortstop position, but based on last year being a second baseman, that is where I'll rank him in this video. 16 home runs last season, 238 average. He had a down year at the plate, average-wise. 303 on base, not good at all. 434 slugging and a 737 OPS. Trevor Story had a very, very, very down year last year for the Red Sox, his first year with Boston. First year out of Colorado, but I still think there's a lot of promise in Trevor Story. I just think, first year with a new team, adjusting to not playing in Colorado. I think those are just a few factors. Defensively, he's still one of the best players in the game. 97th percentile and outs above average. He's a Gold Glove winner in his past. Trevor Story playing shortstop or second base. He's probably a better second baseman just based off of his arm. But he's getting paid a good amount of money. He's played shortstop in his past. This year he'll be a shortstop. But for this list, like I said, second baseman. Number 9 is Trevor Story. Number 8, another guy that will probably be a different position, is Jake Cronenworth for the Padres. I'd expect him this year. I think he's probably going to play first base based on the additions of Xander Bogaerts at short, sliding Kim over to second base. And you'll probably see Cronenworth get a good amount of time at first base this year. 17 bombs for Cronenworth, 239 average, 332 on base, 390 slugging, 722 OPS. What a great glove Jake Cronenworth has. He's actually a really exciting player to watch. I've gone to a good amount of Padres games. As of late, I am an Angels fan, but I've been to a few Padres games. And let me say, first of all, he has, I don't know if he still does it, but one of the games I went to a few years ago, he hit a dinger. He had an absolute nuke to right field and did one of the coldest celebrations I've ever seen with his first base coach. Shout out to the cousin Gavin, because if you watching this, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That was so dope. But 109 WRC plus last season for Jake Cronenworth. Moving over to first base this year, but last year's second base was very productive, on that defensive side of the ball. And just a really, really solid defender, for Jake Cronenworth. 83 percentile and outs above average. He doesn't swing and miss at a lot of pitches. 88th percentile and whiff and chase rate. He walks a good amount. He doesn't hit the ball particularly hard, but, that doesn't really matter. You don't have to hit the ball as hard as Aaron Judge or Giancarlo Stanton to be a really good Major League Baseball player. So he's at number 9. Number 8 is Jazz Chisholm from the Marlins. I think Jazz Chisholm has potential to be one of the best players in the game if he can just stay healthy, and that's been a really big problem for him. An extremely fast player, one of the fastest in the game. Last year, All-Star, 14 home runs, 254 average, 325 on base, 535 slugging, 860 OPS. Only 24 years old, probably the best player on the Miami Marlins on the position player, offensive side of the ball. I expect him, if he stays healthy, he's a 30 home run, 30 stolen bases kind of guy, and he has the potential to be one of the best players at that position in a few seasons if he can just stay healthy and on the field. He's at number 8. 10, 9, 8, 7. Oh, sorry. He was at number 7. Number 6 is Ozzie Albies from the Atlanta Braves. Last season for him, missed a good amount of time. 8 home runs, 247 average, 294 on base, 409 slugging, 703 OPS. Down year, but also missed a lot of time with injury. He's an okay defender, not a great arm. But yeah, last year missed a lot of time. I still think he has the potential to be a really, really good player. You look at years past when he did play, great second baseman, great offensive switch hitter player, puts the ball to all fields, can really hit the ball, far, get on base, and slug at a decent level. Just last year, not his most productive season with the Braves. Like I said, though, he missed a lot of time with injury. Number 5, I have Brandon Lout from the Tampa Bay Rays. This guy, he missed a lot of time last season as well. 8 home runs, 221 average, 308 on base, 383 slugging, 691 OPS. But in years prior, Brandon Lout has been a very good offensive player. Defensively, it's not worth mentioning. He's a horrible defender at that second base position. He can move around to a few other positions. Can play third base, can play possibly some outfield spots. But looking in years past, 2021, he hit 39 home runs. 2020, 14, 2019, 17. Looking at his average in some of those seasons, 280, 309, 247 and 269 with a WRC plus, 151, 137. Last year only played 65 games. So I think if he plays a full season, you're looking at Brandon Lout to be, a 25, maybe even 30 home run type of player last season, but did get injured, and defensively, not even worth mentioning. He's at number 5. Number 4, I have Jeff McNeil from the New York Mets. This guy is one of the best hitters on the planet. From a pure putting the ball in play, batting average, ball to all fields kind of guy, Jeff McNeil's one of the best hitters on the planet. 326 batting average last season, 382 on base, 454 slugging with a 143 WRC plus. And defensively, Jeff McNeil is very, very good. 95 percentile, outs above average. He can play a whole lot of positions. He can play the outfield, second base, third base. Second base is probably where he'll be majority of this next season. He doesn't strike out. Jeff McNeil does not strike out at all. 99th percentile in terms of strikeouts. He doesn't walk a lot, but that's because he gets on base and he hits the ball. Puts the ball in play, drives and runs. He does, what you'd expect out of a second baseman to do. The second baseman, in terms of the stereotype, is a contact-hitting, good defender who can drive in runs and put the ball in play and get on base. And that's exactly what Jeff McNeil can do for the New York Mets. He's at number 4. Number 3 is Marcus Semien from the Rangers. Last year got off to a little bit of a slow start earlier on in the season, but he ended off really good. 26 home runs, 248 average, 304 on base, 429 slugging, 733 OPS. Great defender for Semien. That move to second base that he made with the Toronto Blue Jays, I think, extended his career. If he was continuing to play shortstop, you're looking, defensively, I still think he'd be pretty solid, and offensively, he'd do the same. But in terms of getting this contract that he got from the Rangers, I don't think that would have happened if he still stayed at shortstop. That year with the Blue Jays, he had hitting the most home runs by a second baseman ever 2 years ago for Toronto. Really helped out Marcus Semien. In this past season, like I said, offensively, he had a slow start, but he ended off pretty solid. And then defensively, 95th percentile and outs above average. Strikes out at a decent rate. He doesn't strike out a whole lot, so that's really good to see. He's very fast. He doesn't swing and miss at a lot of pitches, which is very, very good to see. A lot of guys nowadays are swinging and missing at a lot of pitches. Marcus Semien, very, very good player. He's at number 3. Number 2 is a breakout star in Andres Gimenez from the Cleveland Guardians. Last season was an all-star, and this guy is probably the best defensive second baseman in the game. He might be a top 10 defensive infielder in all of baseball. He was second in Major League Baseball in defensive runs saved at 16 at the second base position, 98th percentile in outs above average. And this guy, last season at the plate, 17 home runs, 69 RBIs, 20 stolen bases with a 297 average, 371 on base, 466 slugging, and an 837 OPS. He was an all-star. Great defender. Gold glove defender. And he can hit the ball. He hit 17 home runs. And he got on base at a near he hits for a near 300 clip, gets on base at a 370 clip, and steals 20 bases. Andres Giménez is a perfect player for that second baseman stereotype. Perfect player for the Cleveland Guardians. He doesn't strike out. He strikes out at a decent clip. He does chase a lot of pitches. He doesn't walk a lot, but defensively, he's fast. He had the second most defensive runs saved in baseball. Great glove, great bat. Andres Giménez has the potential to be the best second baseman in the game of baseball. But I have him at number 2 because number 1's Jose Altuve, former MVP last season, 28 home runs, 300 average, 387 on base, 533 slugging with a 920 OPS. I mean, just looking at Jose Altuve's, stats, doesn't strike out a lot. He walks a lot. He doesn't swing and miss at a lot of pitches. He squares the ball up and he hits it hard and far. He's a solid defender at second base. Jose Altuve can do it all, and he's done it all for many, many years. He's terrorized, the Angels and the Yankees and a lot of these teams, especially in the postseason. Jose Altuve is the best second baseman in all of Major League Baseball. So that is the list. We'll go through one more time. Number 10, Gavin Lux. Number 9, Trevor Story. 8, Jake Cronenworth. 7, Jazz Chisholm. 6, Ozzy Albies. 5, Brandon Lau. 4, Jeff McNeil. 3, Marcus Semien. 2, Andres Giménez. And number 1 is Jose Altuve. That is the top 10 second baseman. Next episode is top 10 shortstop, and after that is the third baseman. These next two are going to be very hard. These are the two of the deepest positions in baseball, but we'll get to those tomorrow and on Thursday. So thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode recapping Cowboys Buccaneers wildcard game and our top 10 second baseman heading into next season. As always, and as I mentioned earlier, the franchise is available on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Instagram, TikTok, all in the description of every single episode. Go check those out. Like, share, comment, follow, subscribe. We'll be back on Wednesday with another episode. Thank you guys so much. See you guys later.